Hey game gurus, welcome to the Level Design Lobby. You're going to be joining me as I break down the conclusion to one of my favourite gaming franchises. Hey everyone, I hope you're well, playing and or making the games that you all love. And no matter what time you're listening to this, morning, afternoon or night, I do hope that you're having a great time. Now you're joining me, your host, Max Pears, where we discuss all things game and level design. And this one here is a great one. For those of you who listened to last week's episode, you'll know what this is about. This is about Kingdom Hearts 3. I've been wanting to talk about this for a while, but with the new DLC dropping, I think it was last week or the week before, it seems like no better time than to revisit this game. But before we do that, let's give a shout out to today's sponsor. Today's sponsor is GameDev.tv. I've teamed up with them after having them on the podcast with Rick and Sam, but we've now teamed up to bring you a special discount on their courses. They create a range of courses from that of Unity to Unreal. And by teaming up with them, we've brought down the prices from what normally ranges from about $180 to over $200, all the way down to $12. This here will only last till the end of February. So if you do want this, please do jump on, because it is a great way to learn and gain more and more knowledge. I myself have already bought one of their courses on 3D programming in C# and Unity. Down below in the description, you will find my recommended courses that I think will help benefit you as a game and level designer. So if you do want that, go click down below, because again, this is a fantastic deal that will end at the end of February. So let me know what you think, and I hope to see you on those courses as well. With our great sponsor now given a shout out, we're going to move on to the actual topic, the meat and potatoes of this episode, which is obviously Kingdom Hearts 3. Now I mentioned at the intro of the show how Kingdom Hearts 3 is one of my favourite franchises. I've grown up with this franchise from the very first one when my dad downloaded it to when I think I was about 13, to then rediscovering it in Kingdom Hearts 2, where I was playing it with my friends. And now, even through then, you had Dream Drop Distance, or Birth by Sleep, which I was playing through university. Dream Drop Distance I got when I was starting my career in Ubisoft. And now, here we are at the Sora arc. Oh no, it's Xehanort arc, conclusion. And they've been a big presence, accumulating a huge fan base across all of the world. I'm sure a lot of you who are even listening to this now have played at least one of the games or seen the trailers. So it's a really well known, and it's developed by Square Enix. Now this is the actual concluding part, as I mentioned, of the Xehanort, saga. And to me it's been very interesting to see, because the time difference from 2 to 3 I think is over 10 years or something close to that era. And it's not like they haven't made games in between, but to see what they've been trying to do, because they also released one on mobile as well, and I've forgotten what that one's called. But they've really taken the franchise in different directions, some really amazing and others not so well. I wasn't a huge fan of the mobile version for me personally, just my personal preference and taste, nothing bad or anything. And with that, Kingdom Hearts 3 finally came out, I believe it was like a year ago, in January. It took me a while to complete it, just because obviously busy working with the podcast, but I completed it, and I did, have so many things that I wanted to talk about. But again, there's always something popping up, and if you know the podcast, by the time a game has roughly stopped being trending, that's when I will come back and talk about it. I'm always a bit late to the mark, but we're actually going to be here, and like I said, trying to tie it in with the release of the DLC. But after thinking more and more about everything that we've seen here, I actually wanted to break down a few different areas that really intrigued me. We're going to be talking about mechanics, combat, bosses, the worlds and the level design, as well as different side activities. Now, for many of you, the game is huge, probably way bigger and way more, not even in terms of just size and scale, but I'd probably say in depth with its systems as well. There's a lot to cover. I'm going to be covering as much as I can, and my design knowledge is primarily level design and a bit of game design, so there's some things we'll be talking about, but the rest will be, again, personal preference. And this is a big thing, I don't like to talk bad about games or anything. This is not a review, because the fact that my brothers and sisters in the industry have made these games, and there's always something to learn from it. So again, this is not a review, this is not criticism, this is me taking a look, breaking down, seeing what we can learn and take away from it all. Now, with that said, why don't we stop my rambling and actually jump into the very first bit itself now. Now, the first section is going to be talking about mechanics. Mechanics, for those of you, I'm sure most of you already know, but mechanics are the way that you interact with the world, whether it be ranging from your locomotion, running, jumping, to that of the combat, how you swing your sword, shoot a gun, or even more in just how you interact with overall space. All of that plays a role in not only your game in terms of how the player moves, but how they interact, as well as the storytelling of your character and of the world that you occupy as well. And one of the things that I think is something that you just have to respect for Kingdom Hearts 3 is how many mechanics there are, how many different kind of ways that they think and push different boundaries, and it really blew me away. When I talk about this, I think one of the most interesting things for this is like how they take the Disney lore and try put that into a mechanical sense. We'll talk a little bit more about that on the combat side, but I always think that's so incredible, because for those who haven't played, think of it as the love child of Final Fantasy and Disney. That's the best way to describe it. You get characters from all over those universes, from the Final Fantasies. There are other games such as The World Ends With You, to that of Winnie the Pooh, now Elsa from Frozen, and many, many more. And one of the things that has always been, I guess, seeing that didn't change so much as the games progressed through the years, was how we as the player progressed through the different worlds in the universe of Kingdom Hearts. What I mean by that is you traditionally went through the worlds, and how it would feel different is more from coming from the animations, the cinematics, and the dialogue with the characters in those worlds, rather than how you moved through it. Now again, that's because games have been evolving. As we've talked about already, this franchise is way over a decade old, so as you can see, games have advanced over time. But one of the big things that I really want to, like I said, give props for, and I think we should all take note for, is how they had a different mechanic within each world. In a previous episode, you've heard me mention about core mechanics within games, talking about how you use a core mechanic to emphasize that of a character, to show mastery, build on this for players to, enjoy, learn, and more. Well, not only do they have these kind of core mechanics in the game, but they have these, I guess I'm trying to figure out how I'd call them, but I guess core mechanics of the world. So each time you go to a new world, there's something different about it in how you, the player, interact with it. So not only are we getting a visual difference between the worlds, but we're actually getting a interaction difference, making this feel like a brand new world, that we're no longer in the same way through the looks, but how we are able to move through it is felt through us as the player as well, solidifying that feeling of actually being within a different space, a different area. So if you are thinking about changing up your spaces, think about how to change up that feeling. A simple example in terms of like logistically simple, that makes sense in the real world, is when you think about Zelda Breath of the Wild, how you run through the normal kind of forest areas. I don't think you can hear me tap with my slippers on the floor, but there you are. And yet when you get to the frozen area, your character starts to shiver, they don't walk as fast. versus that of when you're in the lava where you sweat so much, and in the desert you can't travel at certain times during the day for so long because of the fact that this will deplete your stamina and make you pass out. So again, a logistic cool way to do that, when I say logistic I mean a logical, should I say, way of doing that. But in Kingdom Hearts you've got so many different universes from the Disney worlds, and not only that, they opened it to Pixar as well, but they focus on something different each time. So let's take, for example, many of you have seen this even if you haven't played it, but that within the world of Toy Story. You get shrunken down as Sora, you'll see that his art style has changed as he's turned to an action figure with Donald and Goofy. Those of you, well, you can't see me, but I just did a little bit of a robot to show him turning. But thank goodness no one can see me acting out these actions. Not only that, they really changed up part of the way that Sora interacted in the space. And this came through the fact of not only the level itself, where you were crawling through different types of spaces, whether that's going through these different kind of pipes and vents, or into doll houses, that makes the space change. You know, there's a child's play area, so all of that felt like it was grounding you in the world in the perspective of a toy. But not only that, you had these mecha suits, these suits that would attack the player, but once the player had done enough damage, they could jump into the mech suits. Now, these suits couldn't be found in any other world. They were just solely in that of the world of Toy Story, which again makes you start to learn, because you learn that these are the most powerful enemies that you're against, and it's probably best you take them out first when you're strategizing. And not only that, but it gives the player a benefit when they do take over, because now they're in a suit of armor, they get to do more AoE damage, and again, it just makes the player have to learn. We talked about just then, grounding and changing the feeling to, again, really solidify that change of environment. But not only this, in this case, it's now giving the player a whole new gameplay loop in which they have to figure out, learn, and then master, just as we spoke about with the core mechanics earlier. And by having that in there, you now have a chance for the player to have a cool new experience of learning. Because the fun part of games, I always think, and it's in State of Flow and Theory of Fun, two great reading materials that I recommend, is that when you're learning, it's the most exciting thing. The fact that you are now learning how to pass an obstacle. And this is what makes it exciting, this mechanic here, that the fact that you are getting to grips with this world on how the scale of Sora as a normal human being versus now a tiny toy. You can feel that impact because these mech, bots wouldn't even be a threat to you, but now they're dangerous. And not only that, you get a cool chance to interact with them. The movement's obviously different. The way that they attack when you're fighting against them versus being in them is different. And all of that comes to play because it also then shapes how you traverse as well. Not only is this useful in combat, but it helps you get to higher places, etc. And it just makes, again, the experience of each world more memorable. Now, we just talked about the world of Toy Story, but there is also other examples as well. And one of the biggest contrasts is in that of Tangled. Because in Tangled, you actually get... Well, let me rephrase that. You don't actually get anything. It's more about tying you with the narrative of the film Tangled. For those of you who haven't seen the film Tangled by Disney, I actually recommend it. I do think it's one of their better ones by far. It's one of my favourite Disney films, Tarzan and Tangled, just for the record, in case you are ever wondering. Because what they do is they tie that into the theme. Oh, just a side note, I do recommend, again, another little outsource reading if you get The Art of Tangled. A beautiful book, how they came up with that art style. Oh, just magnifique. Back to the actual point of level design, Max, not just books and fanboying over Tangled. One of the things that they focus on is, if those of you who've seen the film, it's very much about a coming of age story. Rapunzel trying to figure out who she is, trying to figure out how she fits in this world, and what is the world around her actually outside when she explores. And therefore you get to experience these moments with Rapunzel instead of it being about a giant mecha suit which can jump and shoot and launch rockets, you're actually just taking in the environment with Rapunzel, because it is beautiful, by the way. The Kingdom Hearts has an amazing way to adapt their characters to each art style of different films. Truly, bravo there. But not only that, you get a chance to share those first moments with, why am I forgetting the name of her right now? Of Rapunzel. Jeez Louise, why am I... Oh, right, anyway. But what I'm saying is, there's a moment in the films where you've got a montage of her swinging around trees, rolling down hills, all of these things that just make her happy and makes you enjoy this. But what's great about this is now you get to experience that with the character. There's a point where you go into a lake, and you're able to use your water magic in there, and it splashes people with water, and she's enjoying it. It's the first time she's been able to mess around within a river, and you get to feel that sense of emotion as well, that you're living the first time, because of the fact that you go to all these different worlds, and obviously it's about fighting, stopping the organization. You get a chance to actually just take on your magic, which again is mainly used for either combat or puzzles, but take on this magic and using it a way where you get to see people have an enjoyment, not just you as the player enjoying it and pulling off some amazing moves, but seeing the particles go off, seeing that you're not just a weapon of destruction in how you use your powers, but you're using them in many magical ways to bring emotion to it. And you can see and just hear the difference in terms of why am I... My words right now, guys, I am forgetting everything. Jeez Louise. The difference is the contrast. That was the word I was looking for. The contrast between a robot and these moments with the water. You get another moment where if you use Aero, the wind magic, you get to move all these leaves around her, making like little mini tornadoes of leaves. And again, just makes that moment feel magical in a more relaxing way. And how they're tying that in with the themes of the Tangled movie even more is brilliant. So yeah, I think the big thing to take away from your mechanics is the fact that obviously you have your cores and stuff to learn, but if you can help tie in mechanics or systems of mechanics in each world, then that makes that world feel even better, even stronger, and has an even bigger impact on the player. Now, this is sometimes hard because of production, making a unique mechanic for each area, which is probably why their levels last. Duration levels are quite long because they want to get the most for their money out of it. Makes sense. But just make sure that, if you really want to push a feeling of a new area, don't just rely on art. Rely on your mechanics and your levels to help facilitate that. To not only do that, but help tie in with a story to have a different feeling of it. So yeah, I really do recommend that, my friends. One thing that I will say is something that's important, because I think this is something to help improve with it, is make sure the mechanic has a nice arc to it, that story arc. Game Maker's Toolkit does a very good episode on the theory, I believe it was Mario Galaxy, where the director talks about how he sees each kind of world, because they do a similar thing with a different mechanic per world, as like a short arc, a short poem, if you will. I've forgotten, it's a specific Japanese type of poem. But, again, you learn it, you master it, and then you finish it off. You challenge it and that. And I sometimes feel Kingdom Hearts, because, again, production-wise, they didn't get a chance to completely finish and expand on these. But make sure you do, so something to push there.
At Level Design Lobby, we believe everybody has a story to tell. Hobbyist or student, freelancer or veteran, we made it our mission to unite those who share our passion for creating and developing great games. Thanks to our generous Patreon backers, we've been able to do just that. So if you've already pledged your support, thank you. If not, you too can ensure the future of Level Design Lobby, helping us to create even more exciting content, collaborations, interviews, and much more. With awesome perks and rewards, whether you're a seasoned professional or just getting started, you're sure to find something for you. Want to share tips, tricks, and advice with passionate, like-minded developers? Our awesome community Discord has you covered. Fancy practicing your level design, creating strong portfolio content, and having fun? Then try our level design weekends. Or perhaps you want to individually discuss your work, hone your skills, or level up your career? Then consider our one-on-one mentorships. If you share our vision, then go to patreon.com/level design lobby for more information and to pledge your support. Thank you.
Right, next one is going to be on combat. So this is part 2 here. This one has been such an interesting one. You see how I've caught myself using interesting. I don't think I said interesting as much in this podcast episode, but the development of this, of the combat throughout the entire series, has been a very, I guess the word really is interesting to watch, because they've changed it each time. Now, I'm no combat designer and have not done really any level design regarding anything with close quarter combats. So take what I say with a pinch of salt, in terms of, because there's still a lot for me to learn about this when I'm breaking this down, and there are many amazing combat designers out there who I'm sure are so knowledgeable on this. I should say my respect to them again for trying to change things each time. If you go back to the very first Kingdom Hearts, I mean, again, this is just a sign of the times. It's not the only game that did this, but it was very stiff, right? Very clunky. I'll put down an article down below which I wrote on the character development in the tie-in with the combat and animations. We can read that, about how I describe how Sora's changed, and you can see that also with the gameplay mechanics as you see him age. But yeah, like when you're seeing it, he's obviously a young kid. I think he's about 12 or something. And then he's so slow in how he swings it. You don't get that sense of being able to combo into your attacks or stop and change it. Like once you commit to that, press that button, that's it. He's very slow with it. Then in number 2, you get a much more kind of developed, where he's much faster, he's lighter, there's a lot more aerial combat. But the key feature of the combat there is the different forms that you get. You got your wisdom, man, why am I forgetting all of these right now? But you had four forms. I'm going to have to forgive me because I'm not going to remember the name, but wisdom was blue. Then there was a red form, an orange form, and your final form, which was more of a silver white one. But all these forms would change your style of movement. For those in wisdom, this was, by the way, the wisdom in terms of gameplay feel. I don't know if you can ever get your hands on it, but I remember that just feeling fantastic. Like the way that Sora moves as if he's skating on ice. He's very light, he's very agile, he's much faster, and then he's not relying on getting close to his opponents to hit them. He shoots them from a distance. While the red form is more about getting up close and personal. I think you get 2 keyblades in that form, and you're just wailing on your opponents by making sure that you're close in the heat of the action. And then final form was just, truly amazing, badass moments. And so this was the key kind of difference, not only in the way that, you move in terms of the attacks were lighter, but that was the key kind of component, the level up, if you will, for the second iteration. In Dream Drop Distance, you then had the flow combat, and this was how that they made basically, what was it? It was, that was it, sorry, where you would be able to chain your attacks by using the environment. So if you had, say, example, a lamppost, you could attach your keyblade, swing around on it, do more of an area of effect, jump on walls to push off to again counter. And this was their kind of selling point for that combat. And before we get into the pillar of combat for number 3, I just want to say, again, the one thing that you have to respect of this franchise is the fact that they are trying so many different things. They don't rest on their laurels. Like, they could have gone from 1 to 2 and just tweaked and made the overall combat feel better. But they're looking for a selling point in the mechanic. How do they make combat more interesting? By unlocking your forms. Vice versa. Not vice versa, but then next they're trying this flow combat in Dream Drop Distance. all of this that come around and connect and make each one not more, but you've now got to learn again. You can't just rely on how well you did last time. And if you watch YouTube, there's some amazing players who every time I watch, I'm like, yeah, I can do that. I cannot. I definitely cannot. But it makes it look so beautiful when you've mastered that combat. And then even in this third one, they've changed it up a lot. Now, I mentioned earlier when I was talking about mechanics, how basically how they take different part of Disney lore and apply it in the game. This one's no different. They have now taken the rides from Disneyland and Disney World and made them into mechanics. If you remember the first trailer, they hop on this train, which is another ride, mode of transport in Disneyland. And you can use that to cause damage. You have the Ferris wheel, you've got the teacups, as well as the boat that rocks back and forth, to the bumper car where you shoot with the lasers. All of them take place within number 3, where it's like a special summon that they've taken from the Final Fantasy series, but now incorporate it with the Disney. And it just blew my mind, like honestly, how you came up with going, guys, it's super cool to have these demons that we get to summon in Final Fantasy, but wait, we're going to do that, but now we're going to make them Disney ride attractions. Just incredible to me, and they felt great. They felt within the world, I think, and it was really nice to see them, honestly. I am very impressed with their out-of-box thinking and constant creativity and constantly wanting to look at more to help push that. Not only did that come into it, but one of the things that happens always within the Keyblade Kingdom Hearts franchises is the Keyblades. Because as you go through and progress through these worlds, you get a Keyblade after you complete each level. Different stats. If you're more magic or strength based, you can choose which Keyblade to equip. But they've now changed it up even more, where you actually get to have, I guess, it's kind of like a weapon unlock / form, where if you do enough combos and damage, you'll get to power up your Keyblade as it takes different shapes. If you're using the one from the aforementioned Tangled world, this turns into little kind of pistols, which then you can combine into a massive cannon, versus that of in the Pirates of the Caribbean world, where you can turn your weapon into that of a spear, a lance, which you can now change up how you have combat, to then summoning a small kraken and tide pool. And again, very interesting. See, I catch myself guys here. I will work on my vocabulary. But that makes this kind of a case study in the sense of how they wanted to not only progress but hold on to what they liked, because in this one as well they still have that flow combat where you can hook onto different parts of the environment and use that to your advantage. Now, everything I've said is true in terms of how great it feels, how they keep pushing, but to tie this in with your level design, the one thing that I felt they fell short on this one, and this is, again, do not think this is me slagging anything off, being like, oh my god, what are they doing? This is me using this as a case study, a chance to learn with all of you, and just again show props to how they've done it. And it's great. And one of the things I always want to say when people have criticisms and try to think that they know better is it's easy with hindsight. Trust me, any developer who's made a game and there's things that they are like, if only I changed this, or if only I had more time, they're more aware of it than anyone who says it on any forums, Reddit or Critic, trust me. But like I say, this to me is just helping to try make sure we sell. To not sell, but as in how we progress. How can you take the notes of creative genius, the constant strive to learning from the Kingdom Hearts franchise, and make it even better with your games? Now, as I mentioned, they have the flow combat, the kind of forms that come with the unlock of weapon upgrades, and the rides. Not to mention just the traditional combat in between as well. So that's 4 systems. 4 combat systems right there. And not only that, there's some sort of there are environmental hazards which you can use as well to help push the combat and help the player as well. But what I think it suffers from is the fact that the levels aren't always built to facilitate all these different types of combat. Now, the forms, weapons, and rides, they don't really need much in terms of from the level design, right? Because the fact that they are more or less summons. You gain this from combos and kill counts, so you don't need to facilitate much. Normally when I say that, as in, like, they don't need much from the level design because it's all built into the system. Now, from my understanding, and again, I haven't worked on a close quarter combat, so if there are designers who have in terms of level design, please let me know more, because again, I always want to learn more. And again, if I'm wrong, please do call me out on it. But to facilitate combat, you tend to make more of an arena, a fishbowl kind of space, which has more kind of space for the players to move around, dodge, and create space. You know, in DMC and Devil May Cry 5, a lot of the times when you find their combat, there's not much blocking the way of the player, you know, because they need to roll, dodge, move, because that combat system is so flamboyant, is so in your face, and you need space to do all those cool pull-off moves, right? So that's what you traditionally need, and the same with the basics of Kingdom Hearts. You need that space for you and the enemy to move, dodge, swing your sword. So if you ever, you know, trying to swing a long sword and there's all these trees around you and they've got collision, you're just going to hit the trees and your full swing arc won't be able to be completed. Now, this kind of comes into contradiction with that float combat, because you need that. You need, like I said, trees to spin off, walls to bounce from. And so what you find is a lot of the time that not all of the combat areas have space for the flow combat, especially not in boss battles. So therefore you've got this system in place, but you don't get a chance to master it or really learn it as much because it's only added in certain areas and certain levels. So my only thing is when you're building the system, is make sure you need it, because I see why they put it there. It's a nice combat system, as is the forms. And they've tried to mash it all together rather than focusing on one system and, you know, give that the spit and shine that it deserves. Because some of those weapon locks are cool, but I still say, because there's more variety of them than the previous form unlocks, I feel like the forms just felt better because it was simpler to understand. You know, like we talked about, your range kind of form, your close quarter, I can't remember what the third one was, and then your final, like, amazing badass form. So you have all of them, it's easy to understand, right? 4 things. Well, here, each weapon has something to unlock, and some of the weapons are similar, but, like, they all have different kind of endings and timings and distances. And not only that, we're now adding in the rides, and now I've got to try thinking about how I bounce off the level, and sometimes when I get to the level, they're not there for me to bounce off. So again, just focus that core on it, because I love the experiments they've taken with this, because it's just so great to see a company and a franchise trying to grow more and more. Just great. So yeah, think about that with your combat, and again, I think there's so much to learn from that, and if you've been with the franchise like myself for a while, then you know, just to see even more great and fantastic and crazy ideas in it is just badass. Okay, I didn't even realise the time we're actually going quite a bit into this, so maybe actually we'll end this one with... which one should we do? Actually, do you know what, team? We're going to end this one here, just because we can do the next parts, which will be... So part 2 of Kingdom Hearts will be talking about the worlds and the level design, as well as the boss battles, and then kind of the side activities that you can do to help tie in with the overall game. So yeah, I do hope that you've enjoyed this one. This one's been fun for me. I really just enjoyed sitting down and talking about this. As you can see, or hear, shall I say, I've had a lot of different thoughts on the game overall and been really a fan of the franchise, as I said, and just happy to see what they've done from a whole design point. As I mentioned, there'll be an article which I talked about Sora as a character, him developing with mechanics. That's in the link in the description down below. For great courses, do remember to check out Game Dev TV. There are about 5 courses I've got in the description. Check them out, and just hopefully they help you become an even better game developer. And then finally, if you do want to help the podcast, then please head over to patreon.com/Level Design Lobby. If you want to get in contact with me, please do so via the magic of email, which is leveldesignlobby@gmail.com. And for more bite-sized level design tips for you to all enjoy, then please contact me on Twitter, which is @MaxPairs. Alright everyone, take it easy, and I'll catch you all next time, in which we can conclude our mini-series on Kingdom Hearts. Take it easy everyone.